Hello and welcome back to the course on Python programming. In the previous tutorials, we completed the challenge. Among other things, we created this lovely facet grid with lots of different scatter plots on it, which allows us to analyze how audience ratings and critic ratings evolved over the years for different genres. We also created some amazing charts, a violin plot, a box plot, KDE diagrams or KDE plots, more KDE plots, scatter plots. We created some amazing histograms, which took us quite some effort to create, and we did some analysis. So quite a lot of things were done, and more or less the challenge is over. However, I still wanted to throw in a few bonus tutorials to demonstrate how we can build dashboards in Python. Now, I know we don't really need to build a dashboard for this challenge. It wasn't requested, but at the same time, it's really fun and useful topic. So if you are in a rush, or if you find that this is not something you need, then feel free to skip these two tutorials. They're not compulsory, but if you'd like to learn some additional skills and hacks and tricks, then stick around and we're going to kick it off right now. All right, so what is a dashboard? How do we build a dashboard in Python? Well, a dashboard is a combination of charts. So for instance, this is already a dashboard. This, even though it's just a figure with two plots, it is actually a dashboard because it combines two different types of plots, two different sets of information, and so on. So that's what we're going to be focused on. We're going to be using the subplots function. Let me zoom in here so we can see better. We're going to be using the subplots function to create dashboards and populate those dashboards with different types of charts. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to need plt.subplots, so we might as well just copy it now, and let's kick things off. So here I'm going to add our plt subplots. You know what? For consistency purposes, I'm actually going to copy this whole header that we use for our imports. So that way we don't miss out. So even if you jump just into this tutorial, you'll be able to follow along as well. So I'm just going to put this above here. And then let's get rid of this for now. So there's our header. Just make sure you run that. And that prepares our workspace for creating the dashboard. And now we're going to use plt.subplots. It returns two values. F is our figure, axis is the axes, and plt.subplots. And let's say we want a dashboard with 2 by 2, so 4 in total, 4 plots on this dashboard. As you can see, it's rather small right now, so let's increase it. Let's go and say fig size equals 15, 15. So if I run that, now you can see that it's bigger. Okay, that's good. And what we want to do now is we want to start populating these. But before we do, let's change the styling. Let's say sns.setStyle. So Seaborn set style, and we'll say dark grid. So now we have the grid. Okay, beautiful. So what are we going to populate these plots with? Well, let's go through our charts and let's decide which ones we might want to see in the final dashboard. It's totally up to you. You can choose any ones of them or just follow along with the code. So what I'm going to choose is I would like to see this one. So these two that we've already put in our previous dashboard. Then I'd like to see the violin plot in the result. And to finish off, I would like to see this beautiful another KDE plot. I know there's quite a few KDE plots, but they are quite useful, and that's kind of going to be the theme of our dashboard. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually copy these lines of code. And we'll just take all of that, including the limit, and move it over here. There we go. So now we've got K1 equals SNS KDE plot, movies, budget millions, movies, audience ratings, and then AX equals axes. So this axis. And this time it's not just 0 because as you remember, as we discussed, axis is now a two-dimensional object. So we have to pass the exact coordinates. We want to put this chart over here. So it'll be 0, 0. And just so that it looks better, we're going to move that to a new line. Same with this one here. So the second one, we want to put it on the second spot. So this is going to be row 0, column 1. Remember, numeration starts from 0. Then set lim is going to be minus 20 to 160. So we'll keep it like that for now, but notice that we're not using share x for the sharing the axis, and therefore this limit will only apply to the first plot. So let's have a look at that. If I click Shift Enter, you'll see that there it is. So the limit did apply only to the first plot, minus 20 to 160. The second plot is still up to 300 and above. So we can either share the axes, but because we've got other plots involved, it might not be the best idea right now. So until we know how they look and what axes they require, so we're just going to set the xlim for the second plot by itself. So there we go. That's our first plot. That's our second plot. Now we want to populate these two. So let's put the violin plot in here. Let's go up. So for example, if you want to mix it up, you can use the box plot just to practice something else. Or if you'd like to follow along with the code as it is, then feel free just to use the violin plot as well. So if I scroll down now, as you can see, it's very straightforward. You just copy the code that you've already created and you place it into your charts. Just don't forget to specify AX as axis. Now with the violin plot, we also need to finish off this code. So if I just run this now, you'll notice that, of course, it's not specific. Even though the violin plot is being added to the dashboard, it's not being added where we want it to be added. It's just being added to the last plot that was created on the dashboard, the last plotting space. So we need to specify exactly where we want it to go. So we'll say AX equals axes, and then we'll say first row. So this is our first row, column number 0. So if I do that and run this, it doesn't really matter what name you give to the plot. There you go. Now it's been placed in the correct space. Okay, so I copy this, remove that there. All right, and finally we want to put one more in here. So let's go ahead and select that last KDE plot that we wanted to add. This one over here, the beautiful KDE plot. It's got two parts to it. It's got the filling and then it's got the outline. So we're going to copy everything. Because as you remember, we can put two plots into one plotting space. So if I specify this here, so for now, let's comment this out. We won't be running this right now. This will it's called K4 as an SKDE plot. That's correct. And then we just want to add where exactly it will go. So here we'll say AX equals, let's fix this up a bit. AX equals axes. So this one's going to be row 1, column 1. So if I run this, that's going to add the plot to that last block. That's correct. But now you can see it's a bit edgy, and that's because we haven't added the outline. As you remember, we can add several plots into one. So for instance, I can add this let's say K4B SNS KDE plot, and then I'm going to just keep it like that. And then just for example, I'm going to say axes, just to explain this whole concept. I'm going to say axes 0, 0. So I'm going to add this outline onto the wrong plot. I'm going to add it over here and we'll see what that looks like. There you go. So you can see that outline that was supposed to be added on top of this plot has been added to the wrong plot, but it's just to illustrate that these two concepts or these two charts are separate. The filling and the outline, we're just adding it for styling purposes, and now we're going to overlay it on top of our actual plot over here. So just remember how that looks. It looks a bit edgy. It's not as smooth, and the outline doesn't look like there's a contour. So if I run this, it'll make it look much neater. There you go. You can now see it looks very nice and neat and very well presented. So that's exactly what we wanted. So those are the things we want. Now here we want to fix this up because we don't want to see that. We want to just see the plot. So we're going to say plot show, plt.show. Okay, so now we don't see that line at the top. We just see the plot. That's beautiful. And that is what I wanted to discuss here. So you can see that it's pretty simple to add charts that you've already created into a dashboard. You just pretty much copy the code and then add this line AX equals axes. Now, one more thing that we need to look at here is what if we want to add a plot that is not a Seaborn plot into our diagram. So here you can see that in the dashboard we've got only Seaborn plots. They're all SNS. What if we want to add one that's not a Seaborn plot? Let's go find one and see how we can add it. So let's say, for instance, let's say this plot, plt.hist for the critic ratings, right? So I'm going to take this and yep, and now I'm going to copy it into our code just like we did with the Seaborn plots. So let's say I want to replace this last diagram with that plot that I have copied just now. So let's say there it is, and I would just do the same. I would say comma ax equals axes 1 1. So if I run this, what you'll see is that we'll get an error. We get an error, and what it's saying is inner got multiple values from argument ax. So basically, and there's nothing in our plot. What is happening here is that for non-Seaborn plots, the procedure is a bit different. So Seaborn actually, it's a situation where there was a standard approach and then Seaborn had to change. Like, that's a way to think about it, that Seaborn plots use a different approach to the standard approach. So the standard approach is actually not to specify ax equals axes, but it's to say axes. So instead of plt.hist, you say axes 1 1. You specify where you want to plot. We're specifying we want to plot in here, and then you say dot, and then you specify your chart. So if I run this time it should work. Let's have a look. So if I scroll down, you can see that our chart's in there. We didn't comment out the outline, so let's comment out the outline. It looks pretty cool though. So if I scroll down, you can see there's our chart. It has been placed in there. So that is the standard PyPlot approach, and you can look up more of this information if you check out the PyPlot page. So let me show you this page. All right, so this is the matplotlib page for PyPlot, or it's got some examples of the subplot. So this is subplot demo, and you can find it at matplotlib.org/examples/pylab_examples/subplots_demo.html, or you can just Google for it. It'll be one of the top results. And so here's got a few examples of how the dashboards that they've been creating here, and you can read through these to get a better grasp around PyPlot, or actually subplots, how to use them. But in this case, what we did is we just said the plot space that we want to add a chart to, dot, and then the chart that we want to add. So that's how it works. With Seaborn, you can't do the same thing. So for instance, if I wanted to, let's say with the violin plot, I wanted to do the same thing. Let's say I want to remove this, and instead of sns.violinplot, I would say, give me a second, so remove that. Instead of sns.violinplot, I would say same thing, axes 10.violinplot. So if I try run this, then that will cause an error. Now you can see that that doesn't work. So violin plot doesn't appear, and actually the second plot doesn't appear either because it comes after the violin plot. So what is going on here is that you can't call violin plot from axes because axes is a PyPlot object. So this is important to understand. This is the fundamentals around how all this stuff works. So axes is being created over here, right? So f axes comes from plt.subplots. So basically you can see right away that axes, just as f, is a PyPlot generated object. So that means axes is created within the PyPlot package, and if it does have access to certain functions and methods, then they will all be PyPlot. The thing about Seaborn is that Seaborn is an upgrade on top of PyPlot. It's like an add-on. So therefore, Axes has no way of knowing about things that are contained within the Seaborn package, because PyPlot is the basis package. Seaborn comes on top of PyPlot. So Axes has no visibility of KDE plot, of violin plot, and so on. So even though you can call axes.hist, you cannot call axes.violinplot because hist is also part of the PyPlot package, right? It's not part of Seaborn, it's part of PyPlot, and therefore axes does have visibility of hist, but axes will not have visibility of violinplot. So hopefully all that makes sense, and that's why for the violin plot, we need to say z equals violin plot, and then here we'll say ax. This is the way that the Seaborn guys have circumvented that problem, that you cannot call axes.violinplot. So they're saying, how about we just pass an extra argument inside our Seaborn functions? So here we got to say SNS. Inside our Seaborn functions, and we'll call it ax, and that will specify where it needs to go. So it's kind of two different methodologies, and the only reason they're different is because Seaborn came later than PyPlot and therefore had to come up with a new approach, an approach to circumvent the problem that PyPlot objects don't have visibility of Seaborn objects. So if I run this, you'll see that everything works just fine. All right, so now let's remove this distribution and let's replace it with our KDE plot that we wanted originally, but that was just to illustrate that indeed we can put any type of plots into our dashboard. Sometimes it might just require a bit of research just to make sure how that plot is going to be placed in there, what the methodology is, because some packages come before others, some come after. But at the end of the day, it's all possible, and you get some beautiful dashboards as a result. So let's see this one pop up. There it is. So I might zoom out a bit. Let's put it at 100%. There you go. So you can see it's a lovely, lovely dashboard, which you can include in a report. So hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. We had some practice. We put some charts together. You can see it was pretty simple. You just, after you've prepared those charts, you just copy them into a dashboard. Also, we talked about some theory, some fundamentals, how things happen in the background or in the back end of Python, why packages, some packages have some certain approaches, and some packages have some other approaches. And also we had a look at where you can find more information on subplots. So lots of information in this tutorial. Hope you're digesting this quite well. Practice that. Try put in some different plots. We've created lots of plots in this section. Try put some different plots into your dashboard. Maybe make your dashboard bigger. Maybe make it a 3x3 or a 4x3. Try adding different plots. See how you go. And in the next tutorial, we're going to have some exciting new features. We're going to learn how to style our dashboard. So I'll give you some tips on styling dashboards to make them look fantastic. And I look forward to seeing you there. Until next time, happy coding.